Okay, so when you see a problem like this, and there's so many of these things that are happening, there's two ways to go about it. You can either simplify this fraction first and then kind of like distribute this exponent, or you can go ahead and you can distribute this exponent and then simplify whatever the fraction is, right? So if we get started, the very first thing I like to do is simplify things first because I don't want to deal with multiple um, multiple things to simplify later on, right? So my first object is I'm going to go in and I'm going to go ahead and simplify this m. I know that when I have m to the negative fifth over m to the negative second, I'm dividing, so I'm going to actually just subtract my exponents. And I know that when I have subtracting a negative, I add the opposite, right? So this is really going to be m to the negative third. And when I have m to the negative third, I know that that negative third is going to go into the denominator. So realistically speaking, I'm going to have m to the third, okay? The 3 and the 4 can't get simplified, so that's why I didn't even start with them. So then let's take a look at the n's, right? So now I have n to the second over n to the sixth. I'm going to go in and I'm going to subtract again, n to the 2 minus 6 power, which is n to the negative fourth, which is going to be 1 over n to the fourth power. Okay, so far I have m and n in my denominator, right? So if I were to simplify this in full, 3 would be left in the numerator, 4, m to the third, n to the fourth would be in the denominator, right? Because these guys are in the denominator. And so really 3 is the only thing that's left. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 2. And you guys, if you have questions on anything that I'm saying, you can always type them in the chat and then I'll answer. I want to make sure that I'm answering your questions as I move through this. Okay, so then let's go ahead, let's talk about this guy. Before we go ahead and distribute anything here, we're going to talk about what do we have in common. So realistically, there's no m that's in common. The only thing that's in common between the numerator and denominator is the n's, right? This is an algebra 1 problem. So n to the fourth over n. If there's no exponent, we're going to assume it's to the first. And then we're going to have n to the 4 minus 1 power, right? Which is n to the third. And that just stays in the numerator because it's not a negative, right? Like in here, I had to go in and put it into the denominator because my exponent was negative, right? So because that's the only like term between the numerator and denominator, I'm going to leave m on the numerator, 9 in the denominator, and then n to the third will stay. Oh, whoops, sorry. I did not mean to do that. Okay, n to the third over 9, okay? And then I'm going to square it. So then as I square it, what's going to happen is I'm actually going to distribute this 2 to every single term. So I'm going to have 3 to the second power, which is 9, 4 to the second power, which is 16, right? Because I'm going to multiply the exponents. And this is technically to the first power, right? Then I'm going to have m to the third to the second. So I'm going to multiply the 3 and the 2, and I'm going to end up with m to the sixth and n to the eighth. Then I'm going to multiply again. And this is technically like to the first, right? So I'm going to have m to the first to the second, which means I'm going to have m to the second, and then again n to the sixth over 9. Oh, whoops, over 9 squared, which is 81. So now that I have this, I can either multiply straight across, okay? Or I can simplify before I multiply. Like I can cancel things that are the same. So for example, I know that 2 m's are going to fit in here once, and then 2 m's are going to fit in here 4 times. So this will simplify to m to the fourth, right? Because imagine what's happening here is I'm having m to the second over m to the sixth. So I'm doing like this kind of math again, right? So as I'm doing that math again, I'm not necessarily showing all of my work like this. And again, you don't have to show your work like this. I feel like it makes it easier for you to visualize what's happening, you know, but you can just simplify like this in your head, kind of like how I did without having to show all of this piece, okay? And then the other piece is I know I have 6 ends on top and 8 on bottom, so I'm going to be left with 2 on bottom, right? I also know that I can simplify the 9 and the 81. So this will be 1, this will be 1, and this will be 9, right? So then there's nothing that I can simplify for my 16. There's nothing left in the numerator anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and solve, right? So my numerator is just 1. My denominator is going to be whatever 9 times 16 is. Who knows what that is off the top of their head? Not me. 144. Oh, that kind of makes sense. Does that make sense? That totally, yeah. I mean, oh yeah, because 4 and 9. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay. Didn't mean to do that either. Okay, and then we're left with n to the 4th, n to the 2nd. Okay, so I would just multiply the denominator, get this as a final answer. This is absolutely the final answer. There's nothing more that you can do with this. You can't simplify anymore. You can't do anything with it anymore. So I hope that this is helpful for you guys for when you're stuck on problems like this for a later time.